Ubisoft goes Steamworks, bye-bye, always on DRM.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Ubisoft goes Steamworks, bye-bye, always
Mm.
on DRM.
Are you okay? You look like you just short-circuited or something.
I am completely fine, I promise. But that phrase, that very specific, totally nonsensical string of words, is actually one of the most infamous sentences in internet history.
It definitely triggers a memory for me. It sounds like a glitch or, a bog that's gone completely off the rails. It has this really uncanny valley feeling to it.
That is the perfect way to describe it, because today we are doing a deep dive into the mystery of a Reddit user known as YayVideoGames.
Right.
For years, this was considered the absolute peak of internet creepiness. If you spent any time scrolling through gaming threads late at night, you probably heard this story. It's about a user who appeared to just, well, go insane in real time in front of thousands of people.
But as we get into the sources today, and we're specifically looking at the incredible digital archaeology done by a Reddit user named SolidGitHS, along with the chronicling done later by the YouTuber Nexpo, we are going to find that the whole creepy internet mystery angle is actually just the shallow end of the pool.
Yeah, we are definitely moving way past the urban legend stuff today. Because what started as a ghost story or a glitch in the Matrix turns out to be a really profound and frankly heartbreaking look at human psychology, chronic illness, and what happens when a person is isolated for way too long.
The massive case study in how we misinterpret digital signals. We see a username, we see some text, and we immediately assume it's a troll or a bot or a joke. We rarely stop to picture the actual physiology of the person sitting there typing it.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to peel back the layers of this digital folklore, trace the investigation that actually solved it, and try to understand the human being behind the screen.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Let's set the scene. We are traveling back to September 8th, 2010. The internet is, it's a slightly different place. Reddit is younger, a bit wilder, a little less corporate. And we are on the subreddit r/gaming.
Which is usually a pretty standard hub, right? People complaining about frame rates, hyping up the next Call of Duty, arguing about consoles. There's nothing inherently spooky about it.
Not at all. A user named Iwishiwasame posts a very standard question. They just want to know the best mods for the game. The Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion.
Oh, a classic.
Right, standard stuff. Just, hey, how do I make this game better? Usually you get a list of graphics updates or gameplay tweaks.
Yeah, people chiming in with, download this texture pack or fix the leveling system. Very utility-focused conversation.
And that is exactly how it started. Enter our subject, the user YayVideoGames. He jumps into the comments with a suggestion, but it's pretty snarky. He says, quote, the uninstall button. The game is great and all of that, but God, it's hard to fully remove the junk it leaves behind on your system.
Okay, let's pause right there. Because that is a coherent comment.
Very coherent.
It's a bit of a troll answer. Obviously, telling someone to uninstall the game, they literally just ask for help playing. But it's lucid.
Yeah.
He is complaining about software architecture.
He even follows it up with a real suggestion in the same post mentioning Oscuro's Oblivion Overhaul, which is a legitimate, well-known mod for the game.
Right.
So at this point, purely based on the text, he is a sentient, lucid human being participating in a forum. But then another user replies to him with a simple what? W-A-T, presumably because they're confused why he's talking about uninstalling in a mod thread.
And this is the exact moment where the timeline splits.
Yes. YayVideoGames replies again, but this time the sentence structure just collapses entirely. He writes, the uninstall button, the game is great, Ubisoft goes, Steamworks, bye-bye. Always on DRM.
Which is incredibly strange on a technical level, too, because Oblivion isn't even a Ubisoft game. It was made by Bethesda. So he is conflating two completely different gaming controversies in one breath.
Can you break that down a bit for anyone listening who maybe wasn't deep in the gaming forum wars of 2010? What does Ubisoft goes Steamworks actually mean?
Sure. So at the time, the publisher, Ubisoft, was implementing a very controversial form of digital rights management, or DRM.
Always on thing.
Exactly. It required you to be connected to the internet constantly to play their games, even the single-player ones. And Steamworks refers to the platform Steam. Essentially, gamers were absolutely furious because it felt like they didn't really own the games they were buying anymore. If your internet dropped, your single-player game would just kick you out.
Okay, so he is angry about digital ownership.
Probably. But he is pasting that anger into a conversation about a totally different game from a different company. It is like being in a conversation about, I don't know, pizza toppings and suddenly screaming about the price of gas.
Right.
In psychology, that suggests a thought disorder, where the wires in the brain are just crossing and firing at the wrong targets.
And it gets worse rapidly from there. He adds another comment, quote, "But you oft go work, always on work, DR. Check out the junk it leaves behind on you."
Wow.
It is like his language processing center just completely misfired. A third user tries to step in, playing the voice of reason, explaining logically that the uninstall button works fine and that mods are just files in a directory.
Which is trying to apply logic to a fundamentally illogical situation that usually ends poorly on the internet.
Oh, it ended terribly. That was when the dam broke.
Oh.
YayVideoGames just snaps. In the span of a few hours, this single account posts over 4,000 comments in that thread.
4,000. I think we need to contextualize that volume for a second. That isn't just someone typing fast because they're mad. That is nearly impossible for a human being to do manually without stopping for hours on end.
Right, and that is exactly why people immediately assumed it was a bot.
Yeah, a script someone wrote to just spam the forum.
But the content didn't look like a bot, because every single comment was some variation of that phrase, "Ubisoft goes, Steamworks bye-bye," always on DRM. But it wasn't just a simple copy-paste job. The formatting was going absolutely haywire.
What do you mean by haywire?
Some words were bolded, some were in italics, some had strike-throughs. The capitalization was constantly shifting.
See, that is the detail that makes it deeply unsettling. A bot usually follows a rigid script. This felt like, well, manic creativity. It felt like a human hand physically smashing keys in a rhythm, trying to make the words look different visually, even if they said the exact same thing.
And he was embedding links, too. But not to spam sites or phishing scams. He was linking to unrelated cryptic or just creepy images. And one of those images actually had the phrase, "Ubisoft goes Steamworks," handwritten on a piece of lined paper.
That is the detail that always stops me cold. A bot doesn't pick up a pen and write a physical note. That confirmed, without a doubt, that there was a flesh and blood person sitting at a keyboard. And they were arguably in a state of extreme distress, manually typing or pasting this madness thousands of times.
The thread just turned into a digital disaster zone. Eventually, the Reddit moderators stepped in, the account was banned, and the entire thread was nuked from orbit. Then, whoever was behind YayVideoGames scrubbed their entire profile and vanished. Just a 404 not found dead end.
And for most internet mysteries, that is exactly where the story ends. You have a legend, a spooky story to tell newcomers on the forum, but no actual answers. It just becomes folklore. You know, hey, remember that creepy Ubisoft guy?
Right. Until years later, because this is where the story pivots from a ghost story into full-on detective noir. Enter the investigator we mentioned earlier, the Reddit user named SullegitHHS.
This user completely refused to let the mystery die. Now, finding a deleted user on Reddit is incredibly difficult. When an account is deleted, the data is gone from the live site. So SullegitHS had to use digital archives tools like the Wayback Machine or PushShift, which scrape and archive Reddit comments as they happen in real time.
Basically, they were digging through the internet's trash cans looking for a scrap of paper that hadn't been shredded yet.
Exactly. And against all odds, they found a breadcrumb, a single faint footprint in a totally desolate corner of the internet, a subreddit called r/cleanliness.
Which, ironically enough, is a very messy place to look. It was this barren subreddit. No description, no banner image, just a weird, vague title that said, "This is what."
And guess who posted there? YayVideoGames.
Yeah.
And this was 2 years after the massive meltdown in 2010. In 2012, he makes a post titled Magic. And the text of the post just says, "I need some help. I would not use it evilly."
That is such a distinct, jarring shift in tone from the spam. The gaming thread was this aggressive, manic noise. But "I need some help" sounds like a genuine moment of clarity, a distress signal.
It forces you to completely reevaluate the whole Ubisoft rant. Maybe he wasn't trolling at all. Maybe he was screaming.
So SullegitHS notices something else about r/cleanliness. The subreddit has exactly one moderator, a user named No Substance Here.
Now, in any kind of digital investigation like this, you always have to look at the moderators of obscure subreddits. If a sub has, say, 3 members, the moderator is almost always the same person as the poster, just using a different account. It's a closed loop.
So the investigation shifts to this No Substance Here account, and their post history is odd. They post these strained, repetitive phrases like, the interrogation room underwent some changes while you were away.
Creepy.
Very. And they also moderate another subreddit called r/Banana Freaks.
Banana Freaks.
I really wish I was making this up. The content on Banana Freaks is bizarre. We are talking images of regular hot dogs with captions underneath saying, dirty freak, and pictures of Cheetos captioned, Banana Freaks. It feels entirely like inside jokes that only one single person on Earth understands.
It sounds a lot like loose association. In clinical psychology, that's a symptom very often seen in schizophrenia or severe manic episodes, where a person connects ideas or images that have no logical relationship to anyone else. Hot dogs and bananas clearly don't relate, but to this person's mind, they are somehow part of the same freak category.
But there is a pattern in all this chaos. On these Banana Freaks posts, there's another user who comments frequently, a user named Not Sure How Big You Are.
Okay, so now we have a chain forming. YayVideoGames leads to No Substance Here, who leads to Not Sure How Big You Are. It is really starting to look like a complex network of sock puppet accounts.
For any listener who maybe isn't terminally online, can you define sock puppet in this specific context?
Sure. A sock puppet is a fake identity used by a person to talk to themselves or manipulate a conversation online. Usually people use them maliciously to win arguments or upvote their own posts to gain visibility. But here
Seems to be using them just to have company.
Exactly, just to populate an empty room.
And it gets even deeper, because Not Sure How Big You Are moderates a sub called raw/hipster jokes. It has maybe 9 subscribers total. The jokes make absolutely no sense, but there is a user there named Vinyl Record who comments on almost every single thread.
And let me guess, the comments from Vinyl Record are highly repetitive.
You nailed it. Vinyl Record just keeps saying things like, I had it on vinyl, or I liked it before it was on vinyl, over and over and over again.
It mirrors the Ubisoft Go's Steamworks behavior perfectly. The repetition, the intense fixation on a single meaningless phrase. It is the exact same psychological fingerprint.
But here's the smoking gun. The piece of evidence that ties the entire knot together. On a post about the hipster fashion cycle, Vinyl Record makes one of their standard vinyl jokes, and suddenly, out of nowhere, YayVideoGames appears in that thread.
Wait, the original account? The one that was supposedly banned?
The original account. Somehow, YayVideoGames hijacks the thread, proving that YayVideoGames, No Substance Here, Not Sure How Big You Are, and Vinyl Record were all operating in the exact same space, actively replying to each other.
It is a massive, complex web of identities, all essentially talking to themselves in a dark, empty digital room.
So the investigators solved the who. It's one guy operating a lot of accounts. But this is exactly where the story pivots, because finding all these active accounts allowed the investigators to read the long-term history of the main account, Not Sure How Big You Are, and what they found wasn't a troll.
No. And this is where we have to put aside the fun internet mystery aspect and look at the stark reality. Based on the extensive post history, this user was a male living in Melbourne, Victoria, in Australia, and he was suffering immensely.
The sources describe a medical condition that sounds just absolutely debilitating. He had severe chronic fatigue syndrome, or CFS, along with intense chronic pain.
And I think we really need to be clear about what that means. Severe CFS isn't just being tired all the time. It is a devastating, multi-system disease. He described being completely bedridden and unable to feel any pleasure at all, a neurological condition known as anhedonia.
Anhedonia.
Right. Imagine winning the lottery and feeling nothing. Imagine seeing your family and feeling nothing. Your brain just stops processing joy. That was his everyday baseline.
He also talked about having restless legs that drove him absolutely crazy and severe panic attacks that woke him up every 2 hours. He described his daily life as just waiting in bed with nothing to do except sit in physical agony.
He wrote in one post that he had to physically recover for hours just from walking a few blocks down the street. When you are that sick and that isolated, your world shrinks down to the size of your bedroom. The internet literally becomes your only window to the outside world.
And then there is the medication. To cope with this level of existence, he was heavily medicated.
Over-medicated, actually, in his own words. He mentioned taking antipsychotics that were prescribed by a doctor he absolutely despised. He actually referred to the doctor as human waste. And he admitted to taking up to 1,200 milligrams of codeine a day.
1,200 milligrams?
That is a massive, frankly, dangerous dose of opiates. That is well above any recommended maximum. The physiological toll that would take on your liver, let alone your brain chemistry, is staggering.
He called his living situation a chemical torture room house that was coated in stainless steel.
That specific phrase, chemical torture room, it is so evocative. When you combine severe, unrelenting chronic pain, extreme sleep deprivation from the panic attacks, heavy opiate usage, and strong antipsychotics, the mental state of this individual becomes so much clearer.
So when we look back at the original Ubisoft Go's Steamworks incident,
It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a bot trying to ruin a forum. It was highly likely a severe manic episode or a drug-induced thought loop.
can you explain what a thought loop is?
Sure. It is very common in high-dose psychedelic or dissociative experiences or severe sleep deprivation. Your brain gets stuck on a single concept or a phrase, and it just repeats it over and over. You completely lose your sense of linear time.
Right.
If his brain was misfiring due to the combination of extreme pain, drugs, and exhaustion, getting stuck in a loop, typing that same phrase thousands of times, bolding it, italicizing it, it is a manifestation of his physical brain glitching, not his computer.
That reframes the entire event. We were all laughing at a glitch, but we were actually watching a very public neurological breakdown.
And the real tragedy is he was reaching out.
Yeah.
He was communicating the only way his brain would let him, but the signal was just completely garbled.
The sources go even deeper into his history to explain why his mind might have gone to such dark places to begin with. It turns out there is significant childhood trauma involved here, specifically religious trauma.
Yes, he referred to himself online as an extra Jehovah's Witness. He grew up in a very strict, intense religious environment.
There is this one story he shared on Reddit that honestly gave me chills. He talks about being 4 or 5 years old. He is sick, he has a very high fever, and he is lying in bed. And he starts hallucinating.
Which, to be clear, can absolutely happen with high fevers in young children.
Yeah.
It is terrifying, but it is biologically normal.
Right. But he sees the wall of his bedroom warping, and a black silhouette steps out of the wall. It starts pacing back and forth. Obviously, terrifying for a kid, but the truly heartbreaking part is what happened next.
Right.
He tells his mother about the shadow, and instead of comforting him, instead of saying, it's just a fever dream, you're safe, she tells him the demons are real.
That is a critical, devastating moment for a developing brain. She completely validated the hallucination. She told him that his childhood drawings of monsters had broken Jehovah's protection and literally invited a demon into their home.
Imagine being 5 years old and believing you genuinely summoned a demon, horror movie style, as he put it.
That kind of experience wires the brain for permanent paranoia. It blurs the line between reality and delusion from a very young, vulnerable age. If you were told that the terrifying monsters in your head are real by the person you trust the most in the world, how do you ever develop a normal baseline for sanity?
So you fast forward 20 years, you have a man who believes demons are actively hunting him, who is in constant physical pain, trapped in a room he hates, pumped full of codeine and antipsychotics.
It is the perfect storm for a complete break from reality.
Yeah.
The Ubisoft rant wasn't just random internet nonsense. It was the direct output of a mind under extreme, unrelenting duress.
And it makes the sock puppet accounts make so much more sense, too. If he is isolated, bedridden, and profoundly lonely, creating different people to talk to, even if they are just talking about vinyl records or weird banana freaks, is a way to simulate a social world.
Exactly. The internet became his diary, his social circle, and his entire outlet, even if the conversation was quite literally just with himself. It is a desperate attempt to not be totally alone in that stainless steel torture room.
So what actually happened to him? The Ubisoft incident was in 2010. The r/cleanliness stuff was around 2012. Is he still out there posting cryptic messages somewhere?
Well, according to the investigation, the erratic behavior across all these platforms seemed to just stop around 2012 or 2013.
Did he just disappear?
The YayVideoGames account was terminated, obviously. The other accounts, not sure how big you are, vinyl record, they just went completely silent. But there is a silver lining here, potentially.
I think we really need one after all that.
In his later posts, before he went silent, he mentioned that he had finally gotten out of the chemical torture room situation. He strongly implied that he had moved or managed to change his living arrangements.
So the radio silence might actually be a good sign.
It is very possible. The massive spam incidents coincided perfectly with his absolute worst periods of trying to cope with the narcotics. If the repetitive posting ceased, it might mean he found a way to manage the pain without relying on the heavy dissociative drugs that were causing the loops.
Or at the very least, he stepped away from the digital echo chamber he built for himself.
We can certainly hope. The investigation concludes that he likely just stopped. He stopped needing to use the internet as this frantic, desperate coping mechanism.
It is so wild to think about. We started this deep dive talking about a classic internet legend, a funny meme about DRM and Ubisoft, and we have ended up sitting in a room with a guy in Melbourne in immense pain, just trying to survive the night.
It really challenges the way we look at crazy behavior online. It is so easy to dismiss a troll or a spammer as just noise.
Right, like an NPC in a video game. Just a bug in the code that we can laugh at.
Exactly. But there's always a human being at the other end of the connection. And usually, if someone is acting in a way that seems genuinely insane or erratic, there's a complex, often very painful context driving that behavior.
The internet is basically a massive collection of anonymous text, but those texts are often distress signals, diaries, and confessions hiding in plain sight.
It reminds us that our empathy shouldn't stop at the screen. YayVideoGames wasn't a monster or a ghost story. He was a person in a profound crisis.
So the next time you see a comment section going completely off the rails, or a user posting something that looks like a digital glitch, maybe pause for a second.
Ask yourself what is happening in the physical room where that text is being typed.
And as for YayVideoGames, wherever he is out there, I hope he finally found an uninstall button for all that pain.
Or at least found a better mod for his reality.
That brings us to the end of this deep dive. It is a heavy one, but I think it is an important story to tell.
Absolutely. It is a vital piece of internet history that deserves to be understood properly, not just memed into oblivion.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We look at the phrase Ubisoft goes Steamworks bye-bye as complete gibberish, but think about the actual words he chose to latch onto. Bye-bye. Always on. It is almost like a subconscious plea about permanence and leaving. Was he trying to say goodbye to his own terrible situation? Or was he terrified of being always on, always awake, always in pain, with no way to disconnect?
That is a haunting thought. The language breaks down entirely, but the raw emotion remains intact.
Thanks for joining us on this one. We will catch you on the next deep dive.
Take care.